babies? Guess what? I'm about to go see a movie called A.C.O.D. that you may have never heard of it. I had never heard of it until today. It's been getting slaughtered in the box office and slaughtered in reviews, but it has this amazing all-star cast. So I'm gonna go try to solve the mystery of how it is that all these awesome people wound up in a project like this. Cool? Oh, A.C.O.D. No, that's not how you do it. Oh. Alright, the verdict as far as I'm concerned is that basically all the reviews that you've heard are correct because A.C.O.D. no. When a person has something painful happen to them, they have really big emotions inside of them that hurt really a lot. Some people take those emotions and go get a lot of therapy. Some people take those emotions and drink a lot. Some people have irresponsible risk-taking behavior, act out the painful thing over and over again and hope that it's gonna go away. And some people write screenplays, it turns out. There are all kinds of problems with this movie. Incredibly rigid dialogue, heavy-handed information points, really cheap jokes, a lot of which boil down to being kind of racist, unwarranted emotional payoff, heavy-handed soundtrack. Okay, so there's a lot that's wrong with this movie. Like, a lot. But it actually had a lot going for it too. The premise itself I think is really, really interesting. I mean, there's the money line that they put in the trailer. This generation is the least parented, least nurtured generation ever. The subject matter in this is something that's totally worth talking about. The execution was so shoddy that the point got missed. Watching A.C.O.D. was sort of like watching or reading like a high school current events essay that they picked because the issue is really close to home and then they get really emotional about it. The cast is awesome. Some of them were an easy fit. Adam Scott, who was also a producer on the movie, is probably pretty good friends with Amy Poehler from Parks and Rec. Jane Lynch is just kind of a hop, skip, and a jump from there. Clark Duke is really up and coming. He's the kid that played Trey, the little brother. I'm excited to see what he does next, actually. Richard Jenkins, Catherine O'Hara, great as the parents. I mean, this casting director did an awesome job. Jessica Alba's hot. She didn't really get featured much, but it was nice to see her. So as far as casting is concerned, this movie had a lot to work with. Unfortunately, this script and this whole production didn't really use any of their talents. There just didn't seem to be any freedom for the cast to actually use their talents, to be an ensemble, to have there be any real relationship or real emotion between them, because this movie was so heavily directed. You can see it in the framing of a lot of shots. It's not that not a hair is out of place, it's not that this is such a visually spectacular piece, but it's just so clear that every single shot setup was so nurtured and just had been gone over with a fine-tooth comb so that every single flower was facing the right direction. Or like, to the pixel you can read the bottom of the license plate frame that we're supposed to see. Shots like that don't come from a movie that's just kind of its own creation, it's allowed to breathe on its own. I could go on and on about the problems with this movie and what makes it look like an amateur piece and what makes it weak, but I don't think that I would be doing it justice. It's clear from the get-go that this movie is very, very close to home for probably Stu Zickerman, the screenwriter and director, and it looks like it was probably so close to home that every shot, every single scene, every line of dialogue needed to be delivered just exactly the way that Stu Zickerman had in his mind. It's not really his fault though. What happened with this piece is that he loved it too much. He Lennied it. You know, Lenny from Of Mice and Men, who loves bunnies so much that he accidentally snuggles them until they die. That bunny is this movie. The script is edited so that it skips right past the tension in any given scene. It skips the tension and goes straight to the sex. It skips the tension and goes straight to the fight. Or it skips the tension and goes straight to the acoustic guitar sting that means that we've had an emotional realization. My suspicion is that it was really, really cathartic to write this piece. That Stu Zickerman sat down and made sense of events that had happened in his life, and it was probably incredibly clarifying. There were probably a lot of tears. It was probably incredibly hard to do, but that most of the emotion of that catharsis wound up on the cutting room floor, or wound up as tears into his pillow. It's hard to be vulnerable with emotion that is as real as this. It's hard to put your story out there, and it's dangerous to put just your life out into the world because you don't know how anybody's gonna take it. It's safer and it feels more intuitive to have your feelings really hard, organize them, wash them out of you, write down on paper some kind of organized version of what you feel. When you do that though, you wind up with a script full of cheap jokes that are sure to get a laugh but ultimately whitewash your point. If the emotion that it took to conceive of and write this script had wound up on the page and on the screen, this could have been an amazing movie. But as it stands, the script was so washed and so picked over. The most sincere emotion that we saw in this entire movie was the interviews with the cast and crew during the closing credits. That's a problem. It's one that falls to Stu Zickerman mostly. But here's the thing. Movies are hard, and they are not for the faint of heart. This movie is not cowardly, and it isn't all bad. It's just that putting yourself out there in such a personal way is scary as fuck. This piece had really good raw material. It just wasn't ready yet. Stu Zickerman is a baby. This is his first project. He looks like he's like my age. The thing that any of us as actors or writers or directors or YouTubers should take away from A.C.O.D. is that it's okay to mess up. It's okay to have your first attempt be messy and ugly, because after this, who knows, maybe he'll learn and the next thing that he does is going to be the next big thing. So yeah, A.C.O.D. sucks. On a scale from 1 to the movie that they thought that they were trying to make, this movie is like a 60. That said, A for effort, Stu Zickerman shouldn't stop trying, and neither should you. You want to talk about it? Put it in the comments. I'll be on Facebook. I'll be on Twitter. My name's Amalia, and thanks for watching. Love!